What a bam bam! It's festival time again. Jamaica 55 is here. Well, just 2 days away, really. We kickstart the Independence Weekend right now. Coming up, London, England can expect explosive action as our Jamaican stars participate in the World Championships. We'll expose a few of the reasons we run so fast. Plus, this mighty visionary who was born before his time, then before the show closes, an appeal to slow down. After this short message, the news, and then we'll delve into those features and others. Stay with us.
Good day, I'm Theodore Henry, and this is your GIS News for Friday, August 4. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has signaled government's intent to negotiate a new infrastructure development agreement with the Chinese government after the current one expires. The Major Infrastructure Development Program, MIDP, ends in September 2018 and is a continuation of the Jamaica Infrastructure Development Program, JDIP. Mr. Holness says that in the negotiations for the third agreement, emphasis will be placed on including a training component for Jamaican workers. Community roads will also be given attention.
So I want to say to you that we are not forgetting the municipal authority or the local roads, but our focus and effort is always on making sure that there is national connectivity that improves our efficiency and productivity.
Prime Minister Holness was speaking on Thursday as he opened the $700 million Coupius Bridge at Pennant in Clarendon.
This investment says that the government of Jamaica recognizes the importance of this area, respects the people who live in this area, sees the economic potential of the area and want to see it maximized, and that this area is an important part of the productive band within the country, and we want to connect it.
The Ministry of Education says there is money available to help schools that may be facing funding shortfalls. The assurance comes from Portfolio Minister Senator Ruel Reid, who has stressed that government's focus is the core operational needs of the schools.
We have adequate funding in our system to deal with any particular challenges. We are funding the core services. What we have said is that co-curricular and competitive sports and other special programs, those are areas that they will have to seek stakeholder support to fund those.
Senator Reid insists that he and senior ministry staff have regular meetings with the Jamaica Teachers Association and no concerns have been raised over the past year about funding shortfalls. He says schools need to contact the ministry if they are experiencing challenges.
We are not aware that there are any particular challenges faced by any school at this time, and whatever are the specific relevant to an individual school, they ought to consult with the ministry, contact their education officer or the regional director directly, and they will make contact with central ministry.
Senator Reid's comments come against the background of complaints from parents about breaches of the ministry's non-mandatory fees policy. Insisting that any deviation is a breach, the minister has warned that school administrators and boards of management will face strong action if there are found to be breaches of the policy. Government will be establishing an insurance scheme from the sale of the compilation of past festival songs. Culture and Entertainment Minister Olivia Grange says this is to offset funeral expenses for artists who have made an impact in the music industry.
It's very painful to see that they have contributed so much to the development of our music, and in their last days, things are not so good. And so this insurance policy will be established to ensure that we can address that concern. And so for this year, that will be treated as one of our legacy projects.
Minister Grange says the festival song competition will be reintroduced next year under a new structure. This will include workshops covering areas such as stagecraft, lyrics writing, basic music theory, and personal development.
In other words, that workshop will expose Jamaicans, particularly the young people, to certain training and packaging that is necessary when you're going to go to the public and display your craft or your talent.
And finally, JAS President Norman Grant is assuring that adequate security will be in place for the 65th Annual Denbigh Agricultural, Industrial and Food Show. He says security will be boosted with the installation of a surveillance system and the addition of Jamaica Defence Force personnel. These measures will support the work of police and private security persons. More than 100,000 persons are expected to attend the 3-day Agri-Show, which will be held on the Denbigh Showground in Maypen, Clarendon from August 5 to 7. The Jamaica Urban Transit Company will again be providing transportation services from the Halfway Tree Transport Centre, Portmore Mall and Spanish Town Transport Centre. Passengers will also be accommodated at the Lyndhurst Road Depot. The cost is $1,700 per adult and $1,400 per child round trip. Children under 3 years old will travel free. Denbigh transport tickets are available at JUTC's Greater Portmore office, Downtown Hub, and the Spanish Town and Halfway Tree transport centers. Commuters with smarter cards may use them to ride on the buses. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
Let's celebrate Jamaica to the world. Fastest man in the world. First Jamaican woman to win gold in Olympic 100-meter sprint. An upcoming global superstar. Mouth-watering meals. And a vibrant set of people. We are Jamaicans. Let's get together and bring back the love.
The world over, people want to know why Jamaicans run so fast. My usual response? It's in our DNA. When you consider the abundance of natural foods found on the island, coupled with track meets from basic school right up to the tertiary level, then we must run fast. The 16th World Championship started today in London, England. In salute to our athletes, watch this.
The year was 1948. Having formed the Jamaica Olympic Association nearly a decade earlier, the way was now clear for this tiny yet pristine isle of wood and water to participate in its first ever Olympic Games in London. In that first outing, Arthur Wint, aka the Gentle Giant, clocked 46.2 seconds to win the 400-meter event ahead of his teammate Herb McKinley.
McKinley, second from the top, leaves the mark quickly. After 200 meters, he leads Arthur Wint, who is beside him, by 4 yards. Arthur Wint first, Herb McKinley second.
And the medal streak continued at the Helsinki Games in 1952. George Roden, gold medal winner in the 400-meter event. Herb McKinley, silver in the 400 and 100 meters. And Arthur Wint, silver medalist over 800 meters. This scintillating trio, along with Leslie Lang, joined forces to move the baton in the 4x400 meter relay, winning in a record-breaking time of 3 minutes and 39 seconds.
He must make up the distance against Charlie Moore. Herb McKinley has made up the 15 meters. Jamaica first, United States second.
The Union Jack is lowered and the new flag of Jamaica raised.
And with independence came a palpable sense of expectation for Jamaica in the track and field arena. In 1962, the National Stadium was built for that year's staging of the Central American and Caribbean Games. Achievements on the track inspired policymakers to seek ways to spread that success to other areas of society. Part of that mandate involved identifying the sports gene in the young prodigies from an early age and harnessing that raw talent. The mission to mold that young talent went a step further in 1981 when InSport staged the first primary school championships. And as its premier track and field competition blossomed, a number of corporate sponsors came on board to support that event. Today, that support is phenomenal, valued in the millions of dollars. The efforts of the Institute of Sports have been supported by the Inter-Secondary Schools Sports Association ISA, which stages the annual Boys and Girls Championships. What began with the 6 schools competing in 1910 for a championship cup is now a well-organized track and field meet, which has become a breeding ground for the best athletic talent anywhere in the world. As in-sport and champs developed, so too did Jamaica's athletic pool at the Olympics in the 1960s and 70s. In 1968, Lennox Miller took silver in the 100 meters. He later won bronze in the 1972 Games. And at the 1976 Montreal Olympics, Donald Quarry won a silver medal in the 100 meters. But that was only the first of 2.
On July 26, 1976, at the 21st Olympic Games in Montreal, Donald Quarry won the 200-meter sprint in a time of 20.3 seconds.
Jamaica's exploits in track and field have also been propelled by another institution, the G.C. Foster College. It began as a vision of the late Michael Manley and kindred spirits like Hugh Small, Howard Aries and Teddy McCook becoming a reality in 1980. The college was named after Gerald Claude Foster, who was a pioneer in coaching.
When it was established, it was really to teach physical education. That was the main thing, and sports.
Today, teachers of physical education and coaches for various sporting disciplines get their formal training at G.C. Foster, building the coaching capacity of the country, now regarded as having some of the best coaches in the world. Names like Donald Quarry, Merlene Ottey, Winthrop Graham, Bertrand Cameron, and even David Weller, who got an Olympic bronze medal in cycling, dominated sporting headlines in the 1980s. Grace Jackson also rose to prominence after winning a silver medal in the 200-meter event in the 1988 Seoul Olympics. And all the while, G.C. Foster College was improving its programs and offerings, contributing to the expansion of technical capacity in sports.
In the 90s, we had a slight shift, and in the latter part, we started to offer a degree in physical education, and we are introducing a sports fitness program. These are persons who work in the service industry, for example, gyms, the hotel industry.
Jamaica's glory days at the Olympics continued into the 1990s. Juliet Cuthbert and Merlene Ottey gained the silver and bronze medals respectively in the women's 200-meter event.
She was sprinter personified. She was absolutely a pleasure to watch.
And Winthrop Graham became the first Jamaican to win a medal in the hurdles event, grabbing silver in 1996. And the hurdles delivered another first for Jamaica in the 1996 Atlanta Games.
Dion Hemmings wins the gold medal in a new Olympic record. The first Jamaican woman to win a gold medal at the Olympic Games. You know that I'm a winner. Got to believe in it.
Her teammate James Beckford also made the history books that year, jumping his way to a silver medal, the country's first and only medal in the long jump. The 21st century brought a new development in track and field, private track clubs.
The MVP Track and Field Club was formed at the end of 1999, going into the year 2000. There are 2 major roles. One, they're an incubator for up-and-coming talent who are transitioning from high school to university and the senior level. So there needs to be someone who can facilitate that transition. We have now created the reality that some Jamaicans will do well in the States at a university there, but many Jamaicans can also do very well as athletes here in Jamaica.
The Racers Track Club, which also emerged in the last decade, has become a prominent track club in Jamaica, producing sprint sensations like Usain Bolt and Johan Blake. Athletes with no club affiliation have also done extremely well. Jamaica's sprint dominance was shown to the world at the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
And Fraser of Jamaica running away from the field to win it in 10, 7, 8.
Oh, this is a big win by Melaine Walker, 52.64.
Bolt sprinting ahead and setting a world record.
Mahonica Campbell Brown will
But Jamaica's athletic prowess is not only dominant at the Olympic level. The country continues to prove its mettle at other track meets such as the IAAF Diamond League, the Commonwealth Games, Pan American Games, the Penn Relays, and the World Championships. The end result of efforts at various levels and across institutions.
A lot of people are not aware of it, but Beijing and Berlin were not by accident.
That we've shown that Jamaican coaches and Jamaican managers can make Jamaican athletes the best athletes in the world right here in Jamaica.
Other organizations have provided direction and support. Policymakers have long recognized the link between sports and national development. The revised Green Paper on the National Sports Policy is being reviewed and is intended to capitalize on Jamaica's achievements and explore the opportunities in sports. All of this to help develop the economy and strengthen communities. Jamaica's 50th year of independence was also a special one. With Jamaica 50 celebrations in full swing, our athletes again did our country proud. It was our best ever showing at the Olympics to date in terms of medal tally. 4 gold, including a world record, 4 silver, and 4 bronze. Jamaica at 50, the sprint capital of the world, a sporting mecca in track and field, home to the fastest man in the world and producer of some of the best sprinters on the planet. A tiny country with the power to raise the decibel level to deafening in the track and field arena.
One of our national heroes who was instrumental in paving the way for an independent Jamaica was Marcus Garvey. His work fostered the minds of Jamaicans to think highly of themselves, to consider that they can be their own governors, charting the process to end colonialism. Next, the man himself, Jamaica's first national hero.
A people without knowledge of their past history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots.
No one remember old Marcus Garvey. No one remember.
A boy of humble beginnings, taking his first steps towards a life decorated and defined by the search for a proud black identity. The journey began on August 17, 1887, in a rural district nestled in the Garden Parish of St. Anne, where the union of a mason and a domestic worker birthed a living legacy of black self-empowerment.
When you hear him describe his mother, Sarah Jane Garvey, she had a different kind of influence on him. I think that he inherited a lot of her sense of compassion.
Marcus also inherited much from his father, Marcus Mosiah Garvey Sr. Together, his parents gave him a strong foundation, starting at 32 Market Street in St. Anne's Bay. The Universal Negro Improvement Association, the Pan-African Movement, the Negro Factories Corporation, the Black Star Liner Shipping Company, all symbols of achievement to which Garvey could lay claim. But his life was more than the public platform familiar to most. Garvey was equal parts Pan-Africanist and father, equal parts orator and husband, scholar and son, national hero and lifetime student. As a young boy, Garvey developed a love of reading, first from his father's private library, and later the more extensive collection of his godfather Alfred Burroughs. An apprenticeship with Burroughs at age 14 provided a platform for literary expression through the printing press. It's an influence that would find expression in several newspaper developments and publications throughout Garvey's life. Even as he trod the path of visionary, philosopher, and scholar, Marcus Garvey was a family man. After a long courtship, he married Amy Ashwood in a private Catholic church ceremony, followed by an elaborate public ceremony and reception at Liberty Hall on Christmas Day, 1919. The union didn't last. But Garvey found love and family life again with his longtime secretary, Amy Jakes. The two married in July 1922 and had two sons, Marcus Jr. and Julius.
You can see letters that they wrote to each other when his sons were in Jamaica and he was in England. He has nicknames for them. He speaks to them the same way a loving father would speak to any child.
From the dirt tracks in a small rural community to a global stage promoting change, the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey was the epitome of ambition.
When you look at his background versus what he was able to achieve in a very, very short time period, you have to recognize that it was ambition that was driving him. But most importantly, he had ambition, not just for himself, but for people of his race. He wanted black people to be liberated in every sense of the word, not just physically, but mentally, economically, socially, and so on.
On June 10, 1940, a nation lost a hero. Humanity lost a world changer. Marcus Garvey was finally laid to rest in 1964 in Jamaica after 52 short years. The man from St. Ann's Bay had given black people a new way of looking at themselves. He'd told them to embrace their identity, that they could achieve anything.
Up your mighty race! Accomplish what you will!
No one remember old Marcus Garvey. No one remember old Marcus Garvey.
When you're on the road, take your time. When you're on the road, bear this in mind. When you're on the road, you could save a life when you're on the road.
This weekend is all about celebrating Jamaica 55. What we don't want are road fatalities. Please, if you walk, ride or drive, be extra careful on the road. If you're going to the beach, party, church or visiting a loved one, be alert and take your time. Leave out early so you don't have to rush. Here's a reminder as to why you should slow down.
Seems like it was yesterday when I saw your face. You told me how proud you were, but I walked away.
Many Jamaicans say they would never commit suicide, but some of us are attempting to do just that each day, and we don't even know it.
I would hold you in my arms, I would take the pain away.
We avoid the warning sounds in our vehicles, break the road rules, and ignore the many road safety appeals.
Last year alone, 330 persons died as a result of traffic crashes. Since 2001, 4,791 precious Jamaicans have been needlessly killed.
According to statistics from the Road Safety Unit in the Ministry of Transport Works and Housing, excessive speeding is one of the major causes of road fatalities in Jamaica. Every time a driver exceeds the required speed limit, they increase their risk of being involved in a car crash.
In every crash, there are 3 collisions that we are going to experience. First collision is a vehicle collision.
Vehicle collisions cause the exterior of the vehicle to be crushed. Fortunately, most modern cars are designed with crumple zones to absorb some of the energy in a collision so as to reduce the maximum force felt by the occupant. Human collision happens when persons continue to move toward the point of impact until the moving vehicle comes to a stop. An unrestrained occupant will hit the inside of the vehicle, such as the window or windshield. A restrained occupant, however, suffers less impact if they were using safety devices like a seatbelt.
The final collision, which is the one that will determine whether or not you survive. And it is the one that creates the serious injuries. The internal organs collision. Any speed the vehicle is going, That's the speed. Your eyes, your nose, your ears, your kidney, your liver, your spleen, your pancreas, your lungs, your rib cage, your intestines. That's the speed everybody traveling, your brain also.
So how can road users reduce such gruesome road fatalities? I'm sure you hear it all the time.
Slow down. Slow down for your own life. Slow down for the lives of your passengers. Slow down for the lives of other road users. Just slow down.
Lowering your speed isn't the only thing to do to be road smart. You should also install and wear your safety devices.
Newton's laws of motion are for real. They are not a respecter of persons. The body at rest will stay at rest. A body in motion will stay in motion unless there is some unbalanced force that comes to redirect you. It's the collision that causes that redirection. When a collision occurs, everybody moves in that direction where the force is coming. So the force is coming from the handle, coming forward, that's where everybody is going to move. The seatbelt now is made to restrain you, keep you in the seat. Every child should be in a child's seat. Once they have outgrown that, it depends on the weight and the size of the child, right? So they should be in a child's seat. So kids, newborn kids up to about 2 years old, they should be in a child's seat. If they are so big, they're getting so big, you might need to take them out and put them in a booster seat to get them a bit higher so that they can fit in the seat belt. Another critical road user that has been problematic for us is the motorcyclists. 65 died last year. 65 males. These crashes could have been prevented. These deaths could have been reduced had they decided to wear their helmet. Helmet must be worn at all times, and also the proper helmet, not the chimney helmet, right? One with the internal padding there to absorb the energy when the helmet hit the asphalt.
While we carry out our individual efforts to be safer on the road, know that the government is also playing its part in making our roadways safer for all.
Seems like it was yesterday when I saw your face.
We urge you to celebrate Jamaica 55. Whether you're home or abroad, wear the vibes in a red, black, gold and emerald. Have a little celebration at home. If you decide to be a homebody, you can play the national anthem and smile about the fact that over 3 million people vacation here annually just because they want a piece of our vibrancy. If you're here, there's lots to see and do. You don't have to be in town to take in the action. Every town, every parish capital will host a free event this weekend in celebration of Jamaica 55. Don't know where the celebratory event will be in your neck of the woods? That's easy to find out. Click on the webpage of the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, jcdc.gov.jm. There you may view a full calendar of events across the country. The festivities consist of a Western Independence Village, which opened today in Montego Bay, St. James. Then there is the Denby Agricultural Show, which begins tomorrow until Monday. Kingston Reggae Night is also on tomorrow. In the night at National Arena. Grand Gala will light up National Stadium on Sunday. If you miss that, then be sure to come out to the Kingston waterfront on Monday for the Independence Fireworks Show, which will be free to the public with loads of entertainment. You have no excuse. Celebrate Jamaica 55. This is where the pages close for today. I know you'll be busy this weekend and may not be able to catch us on the telly, but click on our website and social media pages to stay informed as to the celebratory events and what's happening across the nation. I am Adrian Atkinson. Have a bunununos weekend.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.